strap in, Team Conrad, because this is going to be a jelly heavy episode, and it has to be. We have to get a cool off period from Conrad and Belly. They're going to be both reeling in their own ways from the events of episode 5. And we also really need to start seeing some of these doubts and uncertainties about Jelly as a long-term relationship start to come up to the surface. I think Belly is going to be in Boston with Jeremiah to start this episode, and we're going to see them apartment hunting similar to the books and kind of have a disagreement there. Jeremiah's probably going to want like some high-end apartment building, and Belly's going to be more practical and want something within their budget. I could also really see Jeremiah getting into his job right now. I mean, he just got praised by his dad. He just did something good. And so I think he's going to be kind of relishing in that feeling. And I think that's good for Jeremiah as a character, but I think it's going to actually bring about some conflicts with him and Belly, because he's going to kind of start prioritizing work a little bit over maybe wedding planning or spending time with her, which he could, miss a commitment or be late to something. And though Belly will be understanding of it, it will start to kind of shift their dynamic. Because in the books, through Conrad's point of view, we get a few mentions of how Adam did that and how Adam would be late for work, prioritize work over family. There was one mention of him, forgetting Susanna's birthday and then just signing his name on the card that the boys made for him. And so I think we might see some of that as kind of like foreshadowing of what potentially their life would look like if they continued on the same path, which I don't think. I think something's going to change with Jeremiah and where he's going. There's a lot of food stuff happening, so like culinary school or something. But for now, that's kind of like he's really trying to be Adam. I want to see Conrad talking to Laurel and having that scene from the book, convincing her to go to the bridal shower. I also think in place of Ernie from the book, Conrad's going to have some similar dialogue with maybe Agnes or Cleveland. I think it's possible that Conrad goes sailing, clears his mind, and maybe Cleveland is back writing a sequel to his book. But some kind of dialogue that starts Conrad's journey to feeling a little more confident that he can potentially tell Belly how he feels before it's too late, because that's kind of what the Ernie conversation does for Conrad. I also want to see Conrad and Steven reconnecting. I feel like we're long overdue for that. And because I would assume episode 7 is the bachelor and bachelorette party night, them being, best men together, they would need to kind of maybe think about how they would plan that, what's going to take place. And so maybe that causes them to get on the phone with each other and have a conversation, address the elephant in the room. Conrad's always been comfortable being vulnerable with Steven, so I think that'd be a really good moment for them to just kind of start reconnecting and talking about why Conrad has disappeared for 4 years and why Steven really didn't reach out. And of course, we're going to get Laurel and Belly kind of reconnecting at the bridal shower and the event of the bridal shower, which will have a lot of little subplots with Taylor and Steven and Lucinda. And I'm excited to see the Laurel and Belly moment. I think we're going to get a little bit more than we got in the book. She's going to show up, and I think there's going to be some kind of dialogue there that's going to kind of cause Belly to maybe feel guilty that she just decided she wasn't going to Paris at all, and kind of seeing her mom be there to support her. Maybe that Laurel says something about, but you still have to go to Paris or something like that. And if we do get the surf accident scene, I could see it happening at the very end. Like after the bridal shower, all of these scenes have kind of played out and Belly's back on Cousins, and maybe it's like a cliffhanger type situation. But I do really think it would be a great scene to start episode 7 with, if we know the bachelor and bachelorette parties. Well, we don't know, but if we assume that the bachelorette parties are in episode 7, it would be a really big episode for Belly and Conrad's feelings coming to the surface. It would cause a lot of drama. It'd be good TV to start with the surf accident scene and then finish with the beach confession scene, or some kind of cliffhanger to the beach confession scene. Last thing I forgot to mention, I do think we'll get a dream from Belly about Conrad in this episode. We're long overdue. She'll be out of Cousins, kind of thinking about what happened in the back of her mind. I don't know if it'll play out exactly like the book scene where he's like the kid in overalls and she's trying to help him get home, or if it'll be maybe more of I'm walking down the aisle and I see both the Fisher brothers, and kind of callbacks to the season 1 and season 2 dream sequences with both of them. But regardless, we're definitely getting her dreaming about Conrad this episode because we're long overdue. I went back to watch Jeremiah's point of view after Conrad's point of view episode that we just got last week. And something I want to talk about that seems to be missed by some people is that Jeremiah's interpretation of Conrad and Belly's relationship has always been false. When we get this flashback of him, he says this was the moment everything changed. This is the moment that he noticed her. He wanted to kiss the shit out of her. He was done for. But then he says, but I wasn't the only one. And then he looks at Conrad and Belly. This is the moment Jeremiah thinks that Conrad is also noticing her, because Jeremiah is noticing her. Earlier in the same episode, we see him with his voiceover saying that he hated himself for how long it took him to notice the invisible force between the two of them. He wanted to tell Conrad that he had no right, that he had ignored Belly all of those years. Because Jeremiah wasn't really seeing Belly all of those years. Yes, they were friends. Yes, they had moments where they were best friends. But he was never really paying attention to Belly in that manner, as he said in his other point of view, to notice if there was anything between Belly and Conrad, and if his brother was reciprocating anything. He would not pay attention. Jeremiah is very self-centered, focused on what Jeremiah wants, what Jeremiah needs, and so therefore he didn't see anything with Conrad and Belly prior to the pilot episode in season 1. People love to point back to this moment when they kiss for the first time in season 1, when Jeremiah says, there were times that I wanted to be more than best friends, but I was always waiting for Conrad, for Cam. This is the Hermes episode. This entire plot of this episode is Jeremiah scheming just like Hermes in order to get a result that he wants. He wants Belly to notice him. So he goes out of his way to try to sabotage multiple moments of Belly and Conrad's relationship. Meanwhile, Conrad is self-sabotaging. So once he decides, or once he figures out that Conrad is going to Yarmouth Music Festival and that Conrad is not in a good mood anymore, he uses this opportunity to come to Belly and appeal to her insecurities. Prior to this scene, Belly tells Conrad, I'm no longer waiting for you. And Jeremiah comes in knowing her insecurities. I'm not saying he overheard that conversation. He might have, but that he knew that Belly would be upset about this rejection and she would be vulnerable, and he utilized it to draw on that same insecurity as if he had been waiting this whole time. But that's simply not true. By his own words, later in season 2. Jeremiah didn't see Conrad reciprocating feelings for Belly because he didn't want to see it. He never had a reason to see it until the events of season 1. And ever since that moment, he has been scheming and trying to come up with ways that he can keep them apart. And that is canon. And I think that all just goes back to the fact that Jeremiah has abandonment issues and he has an inferiority complex related to Conrad. Not every time someone is manipulative does it mean that there is only malicious intent. It could also be that you have assumed those behaviors as a response to trauma or insecurities of your own. And that is exactly what we're seeing play out in season 3, because season 3 and season 1 are parallels. This is just one example of him doing this in season 3. He knows Belly is stressed with wedding planning, with the GRE, with potentially working, finding a job, all these different things. Now that Adam and Kaylee are kind of taking over the wedding, this is a great opportunity, Belly, for you to leave Cousins, not to be stuck here with my brother, the old grumpy man, all the other things that he always says constantly about Conrad in a negative way. He is using her stress in this moment to offer her a good idea that he knows that she will take. And then he gets what he wants. He gets the end result that they are not spending one-on-one quality time together, and he can let his insecurities rest and keep his safety net in Belly.
So I'm seeing some discourse around season 3, episode 5 of The Summer I Turned Pretty, and some people saying that Conrad's intense yearning for Belly after 4 years apart seems too much, seems unrealistic. He should have moved on by now. Did he really even like her that much to warrant this much yearning? And to that I say we need to go back to basics and look back at season 1 to really kind of explain this intense yearning, and it will actually make a lot of sense. So in season 1, we know Belly likes Conrad. We know that she's liked him basically her entire life. She's pretty obvious with it, and we also have the benefit of her internal dialogue. We can hear her internal dialogue, so we can hear her telling us how much she likes Conrad and that she likes Conrad at all. Conrad's feelings for Belly are a lot more subtle. One, we don't really have his internal voice in season 1 at all, if I'm remembering correctly. And so you have to pay attention to kind of like the more subtle signs that he likes Belly, but trust me, they are there. And I missed them on my first watch of season 1 of The Summer I Turned Pretty. I was just as confused as probably Belly of does he like her, does he not like her? But when I went back, I've now rewatched it. I'm not going to say how many times, it's embarrassing. It's actually really obvious now. But with Conrad, because of Chris Briney's incredible acting, you really have to pay attention to his facial expressions, these quick looks that he gives Belly, these like really kind of like micro movements that he does that, like I said, are very, very easy to miss. Like I said, we're going to go back to basics. We're going to look back at season 1 and we're going to pinpoint where this yearning actually started, because it did not start in season 3, episode 5 after 4 years apart. So let's go back to the moment where we first see Conrad and Belly seeing each other when they arrive at the summer house. Conrad comes out of the house and he looks incredibly grumpy. You can see his facial expression here. He's not happy. He just looks like he wants to be anywhere else. Look at when he sees Belly. His face literally lights up. Look at that smile. Look at the change in his facial expression from before he sees Belly to when he sees Belly for the first time when she gets out of the car. The other difference in the way Belly and Conrad show that they like each other is that Conrad is actually way more flirty with Belly than Belly is with Conrad in season 1. The issue is Belly often doesn't reciprocate. And I think a big part of it is just the fact that she is kind of presented as a little bit young, inexperienced, maybe a little bit immature. But there are several examples in season 1 where Conrad tries to flirt with Belly and he's not really met with much because she's taken aback. I'm not sure if she maybe doesn't realize he's flirting with her or she feels uncomfortable or doesn't know what to do. So then he pulls back. And again, it's often very quick and subtle. And it's something that you could really easily miss as mixed signals on Conrad's part when I think it's actually just a bid, like a flirting bid for connection. And Belly isn't able to, for whatever reason, meet that bid. So he pulls back. There's this moment when Belly and Steven and Laurel first arrive at the summer house and they do the belly flop. You know, they all throw Belly in the pool and Belly pulls Conrad in after her. And they have this moment underwater where kind of like the music slows down and time slows down and it's this beautiful lighting. They're looking at each other underwater. They're clearly having a moment. And then Belly pushes Conrad off of him and says, let go. So again, it's like that push-pull isn't just Conrad giving mixed signals. A lot of it is Belly too. And when you look back at that scene, you can see he kind of has these feelings for her, but then she pushes him away or she can't meet him where he's at for whatever reason. Then there's the infamous pool scene where Belly's going for one of her famous late night swims and Conrad is sitting by the edge of the pool smoking a cigarette and Belly's telling him that she shouldn't smoke and he should quit. And there's kind of that line that we all know where Conrad says to her in this very flirty manner, "What'll you give me if I do?" And there's this moment where Belly doesn't, like there's shock on her face. It's like she doesn't know what to say to that. And again, I'm going to chalk it up to a couple of things. The fact that she thinks Conrad is out of her league, so it doesn't even cross her mind that he could be flirting with her. And she's also a little bit younger. She's, not as experienced with dating and boys, and she's a little bit immature in that respect. So I think she just literally doesn't know how to flirt back. So then, of course, he doesn't continue to flirt with her because he put out this flirtatious bid of connection and is not met really with anything from Belly. She says, well, nothing, you should quit for yourself. And I've seen a lot of analysis on that scene, but what I haven't seen a lot of people talk about is the way his face falls when she doesn't flirt back. You can see it here. I've taken a photo. His face falls and then he looks down when he kind of makes that flirty line and she doesn't say anything back. She doesn't flirt back with him. He looks visibly disappointed. So then, of course, we have the scene after the fight broke out at the bonfire where Belly and Conrad are in the car together. And Belly looks so happy and content after her conversation with Cameron. She's really excited about the prospect of somebody liking her. Maybe she could like them back. And Conrad, again, looks visibly disappointed. He's looking at Belly with this intense look of longing. And again, we don't have Conrad's inner dialogue, but Chris Briney acts with his face and his emotions and his eye expressions. And sometimes, like I said, it's very fleeting, but it's there. The way he reaches out and touches her hair and the way he's looking at her while he's playing with her hair, again, to me, on a rewatch, is just so obvious that he did like her and that he did have feelings for her. He's not the type to say it straight away or say it straight out. But in that moment, you can tell that he's thinking about how he feels about seeing Belly with this other guy and seeing Belly potentially developing a crush on somebody else. He looks gutted about it. And then, of course, there's the last scene in episode 1 of season 1 where Belly and Conrad are sitting on the beach the next morning. And again, it comes back to the way that Conrad looks at Belly. Sometimes it's so quick. It's sometimes like a 2-3 second shot. But the way he looks at her, if you pause on the screen like I did here, you cannot tell me this is not a boy who's totally head over heels for this girl. You cannot tell me that this is a boy whose yearning came out of left field. If you look at this shot here, this is yearning personified. Like, just look at how he's looking at her here. And like I said, it's not on the screen for very long. I had to pause it to see it. But when you pause it, it's just so obvious. And then he asks her if she wants to go for muffins, and she says that she has other plans and runs off. And look at his face here when she says no. Again, it's just a flash on the screen. You often have to pause it to notice it, but this is visible disappointment. So that brings us back to today, season 3, episode 5. Conrad's yearning did not come out of nowhere. This was just an analysis of a few moments from season 1, episode 1. If I were to go through the entirety of season 1 to pinpoint where Conrad's yearning not even started, because I imagine it did start before this, I think there would just be countless pieces of evidence. And I'm tempted to do that just for like my own entertainment and enjoyment, because I have rewatched so many times, and it's really fun to rewatch and see things that you didn't really notice the first time, because the first time you watch it, you're just taking it all in. You're only hearing Belly's dialogue. You're only hearing how much she likes him. She thinks he doesn't like her. So that narration we're getting from her, I think colors our opinion. But when you go back and watch, you can see there are so many signs that he really, really liked her.
Conrad's point of view and hearing his narration was really the missing puzzle piece that we needed to make this entire story make sense. There were a couple of specific things that stood out to me that helped make his character and things that he's done in previous seasons make way more sense. One thing about these characters is that they do not understand why Conrad does the things that he does. I think Conrad really helped explain in this episode why he is the way that he is. For example, in the flashback with the guest bedroom, he explained why he acted the way that he did at prom. I actually did a full video on this situation, so be sure to go check that out if you want to see more. And then this flashback with Susanna helped explain why he left the East Coast and stayed away for 4 years, because he promised to protect Jeremiah and be a good brother, and he thought that the best thing that he could do was leave the situation and stay away from him and Belly so that they could be happy together. I think hearing his internal struggle throughout this entire episode really explains why he's been so hot and cold to Belly throughout both of the seasons so far. When he sees Belly sad, he wants to fix it. He'll do anything to make her happy. Even if it's really hurting him, it makes him really happy to see her happy. He talked about the motel scene in this episode, but I think it makes way more sense when you just see how much he was struggling spending the day with Belly, and how she thinks that he just gives and then he takes away, and that's just who he is. And I think this gives us way more context as viewers as to why Belly thinks that he just gives and takes away, when now we understand his internal conflict and how he really wants to make Belly happy, but overall he's prioritizing that promise that he made to Susanna. Another thing I really loved about this episode is that it kind of juxtaposes some of the things that Jeremiah said in his point of view episode. One thing that really stood out to me is that Jeremiah said that Conrad ignored Belly for all these years. And Conrad had this flashback of when they were really young, and Belly specifically called out to Conrad to help her out because she knew that he would stay back. And I think it's also just so cute to see how happy young Conrad is to see Belly succeeding on the bike. Another thing I thought could be interesting character development for Belly is when she was talking to Conrad about how she's carrying all of these plans for the wedding by herself and she's doing everything alone. And she's saying this to Conrad, who has had this experience for the past 2 seasons, where in season 1 he was carrying the knowledge of Adam cheating on Susanna and Susanna's cancer and keeping it to himself and dealing with it all alone. And then in season 2 he was dealing with the house sale all alone. They kind of had this conversation in season 1, but now I think it's interesting that Belly is kind of going through the same type of experience that Conrad went through in season 1 and 2, and I'm hoping that it will help her understand him and his motivations better. And finally, one of my favorite realizations from this entire episode is that the main reason that Conrad left and stayed away is so that Belly and Jeremiah could be alone and have a good relationship together without him interfering and kind of being around. This is one of the first times that Belly and Conrad have been together alone in the past 4 years. It only took from 2:47 to whatever time they were having dinner to bond this much and get along this much and have such easy chemistry. So Conrad just knew that if he were around, there's no way that Belly and Jeremiah would have lasted for this long.
Are you talking about this moment, Katie? Because yes, it's so good.
Literally the only thing I know how to cook.
Okay, well, if you're gonna eat...
That little smirk on his face. Oh, he's happy. And it's not like he's being cocky or anything. He's just he's so happy. But also I think you could sort of say that he just feels so, I don't know, I'm still doing slow-mo, confident with her. And there's, I think Chris, oh no, it's in the script note, making her happy makes him happy. But I also think he just has this natural, when they're in the groove like this, he just has this natural calm to him and ease, and yeah, he is more confident and he doesn't put himself down as much. And but yeah, that moment, it's so good. It's
Literally the only thing I know how to
so good.
Twice. It was an honest mistake, all right? I'm sorry.
You know, it's never your fault. And now I'm on the hook for another $20K in tuition.
You kissed my brother.
Still do it for me. They all warn us about times.
I said I was sorry. I didn't know you guys were out there.
Weren't there. You left me.
It's tearing her up that you haven't responded to her text since last summer.
Yeah, well, I've been busy.
I don't know, I've texted him a few times since summer ended, and he never writes back.
No, please,
Just put a little bit.
please don't.
Come on. Here. What's wrong? Are you sick?
No, I'm not sick. I'm just...
Did you remember to call your brother?
Whoops. No, I didn't.
Note, was for her to eat a peach as if she was the only person, there, and that it was a pleasure that was all her own and for herself. And that's such an empowering kind of space because she isn't stuck monitoring and taking care of Jeremiah's feelings and making sure he's okay. It frees up this very empowered space for her just to be herself. And Conrad just loves her as she is. He adores her, in fact. Even this kind of unflattering shot with juice. I mean, think about it. It is awkward. There's literal juice dripping down her arm, her chin. It is the every baby toddler napkin joke that I made about it. And yet he's looking at her just so slightly amused and deeply in love of here's this fragile, fantastic creature who's just magic and is fully herself. So he gives her that permission in a way that she can't with Jer, because with Jer, she's always the one kind of momming him, always responsible for cleaning up his messes and taking care of him.
I'm not a Team Conrad girly, but I am Team Conrad. I am happy to have pleased Team Jeremiah because he deserved to be defended, because he was not checking out Denise. He was doing that for Steven. That being said, I did clearly state in the video that I don't think you guys fully watched that I am Team Conrad and want Belly and Conrad together. Y'all dropping this in a Bonrad comment section when I'm defending Jeremiah is diabolical. And this is how I know they don't know I'm a Bonrad page, because they go, love this, don't let Conrad Bonrad fans see this. Whoopsies, here they are. They've always been here. I created the video and I am a Bonrad. And if I'm so delusional and uneducated and irritating, why'd you like my video? Unless you are explicitly talking about the girls who are Team Conrad, but even those, I have a lot of friends who are very reasonable and rational individuals. There are delusional and uneducated and irritating people on both sides, and I will stand by that. Anyways, it's just super funny to see all these people in the comment section, Team Jeremiah, people thinking that I'm Team Jeremiah when I clearly said in the video that I'm Team Conrad. Hey, we can happily coexist and have our opinions and have our ships, and everything's cool.